Now we are turning to reflect on Dublin 214, Mayo 15 points. Very happy to say, and we appreciate them making time for us. We have Jonny Cooper back on the show, All-Ireland number 7. Jonny, congrats. How you doing?
Good, yeah, thank you. All's good.
You're the poor relation here because All-Ireland number 8, Kevin McManamon, you're very welcome as well. How you doing? You joined an exclusive list. Congrats.
Thanks very much, bud. Appreciate it.
So what have you two been up to since you won? I mean, a team hanging out on Saturday, Jonny? Was it a case of go to a quiet function room together, or do you hook up kind of yesterday and hang out? What's been the last few days?
Yeah, we just try to enjoy each other's company. Obviously, it's a little bit different this year. There wasn't a function as such or an after party, but nonetheless, we try to share a bit of each other's company. We just talking there to Kev. We haven't crossed paths ourselves that much the last day or so. So the nature of these things is it pulls you left, right, and centre. So or left and right, I should say. So yeah, no, it's been good.
So good. Where have you been dragged then? So I thought you might all stick together as a tight group. Now at this stage, you're often side sessions happening here and there, is it?
Splinter groups going on, yeah. I know we've been with each other to be fair, but in each other's company. But yeah, we haven't crossed paths too much. That's the nature of it, though.
Where have you been, Kevin? How have you spent it?
Yeah, I met Michael Darry yesterday actually and had a look at the ladies' game down in Hooks, and then I was in various spots in around the city centre for the evening. But trying to get my head back, I had to do a small bit of work this morning, which I thought I'd get away with not doing, but I had to get it done. So I had to be fairly respectable myself. So I'm fairly sane today. I'm not hugging my knees like I have been in previous years.
Yeah, there's a blessing there somewhere. So I mean, we had a problem with the video, but we were going to embarrass you by starting with the Damien Dempsey video, which is leaked out. I know you guys probably hate that when the sanctity of the dressing room is broken. So I saw you front and centre anyway, Kevin. I don't know, was Jonny singing? Are you a singer, Jonny?
No, definitely not.
Your next room, staying away from that malarkey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a good crack though.
It does look, Kevin, like a special thing to do. You know, it's not, not too many circumstances where you'd have it looked like maybe 15, 20 Irish lads, stone cold sober, singing in, broad daylight, looking into each other's eyes. It's kind of a special time.
Yeah. One particular man wearing very, very little clothes as well, which I did notice, which I wasn't too delighted with. Yeah, look, it is a great spot, and we were probably there for 20 minutes, half an hour, and I think we'd Philly Mac as DJ, and we'd different tunes and all. It is nice. It's always something that I've loved, and traditionally, when we've won titles, there's crowds there, and you're seeing friends from clubs, and you're giving hugs to family members, and you're running over to Hill 16 and stuff. And that wasn't obviously a runner this year, so it was just a nice touch. And we're all big Damo Dempsey fans in the group. We often meet up at his gigs in Vicar Street over Christmas, and we sing that tune top of our lungs. So maybe it was just for the dressing room this year, but all going well. We'll be back now in 2021 in Vicar Street, but singing our hearts out the Church of Damo.
I presume he's been into you a few times, has he, Kevin?
We run across, come across his path the odd time over the years. He's an amazing man. I've been blessed to get to know him over the years, and he's just a wonderful man. And he nearly embodies what Dublin is about a lot of the time, and speaks for a lot of people who don't have the voice, And he's become friends with a few of the guys in the team, and he's been at one or two of the after parties over the years, and we've a great bond with him actually, and his music is part of the city and part of what we do in our team consistently. So yeah, he's a lovely man as well. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Jonny, All-Ireland number 7 then, it must feel different each time. Compare the feeling, and I know, look, these are particularly strange circumstances when you don't have Hill 16 there, but even leaving that aside for a moment, the feelings that come with winning number 6 or number 7 versus number 1 or number 2, can you compare what it means to you or how it sits with you in those moments afterwards?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, in that way, but yeah, different. I think as Kev said there, this was kind of unique in that it was just 40 odd or 50 odd of us kind of together, albeit you'd obviously love your family and supporters there, but this one was particularly tight with ourselves. I mean, I always remember actually calling Kev, I think it was back in 2013, coming into the final, and I couldn't get out of my head, winning that particular game. It's like, Kev, I just need a bit of a distraction to keep me focused. And then I guess, as a transition through over the years, then it's, I don't know, just different. I don't know how to maybe put it into words, to be honest. They're all unique.
It looks from afar, maybe Kev, you could come in, it looks like almost a deeper sense of satisfaction as opposed to immediate ecstasy, maybe.
I think so. And look, there was a big release last year and a big change with Desi coming in. And I think, we wanted to treat this year for what it is. You know, it's not a traditional year. It's not a traditional sunny Crow Park. And I think the effort that our management has put in this year was, and that's one of the things that I was delighted to see rewarded, because a really challenging year for those guys. And we genuinely said one in a row, and there was probably the 5 became a bit of a weight on us last year at times. And I think this year it was just, lads, let's just try and, win the one in front of us. And to see how the satisfaction on the likes of Desi and Mick Galvin and Shane O'Hanlon. I was chatting to him yesterday, a great chat with him, and the work that they put in, and Darren Daly and Brian O'Regan, and all the backroom staff. I think there was a little different feel for them, I think, being their first year involved. So that was one thing that stood out for me. And yeah.
I noticed you at full time, and I was trying to think, is he always a crier? I don't know if you are, but I thought you looked emotional, Kevin, at full time. I thought there were tears in the eyes.
There were, yeah. I mean, always a crier. I find that I am a lot. I do partake in a few tears the odd time. Yeah, I'm an emotional man. I'm an emotional being.
And what is it? Yeah, what is it that sets you off? Is it thinking of family, or is it a certain person in the squad? What is it that kind of is the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to tears?
It's trying not to hold it back too much. I guess I just loved the group. I love some of my best friends are in the group. I love winning, and even though I wasn't on the pitch, it's a massive part of my life. It's a massive part of my identity, and to see the likes of Sean Bugler, Paddy Small, these guys having their first title, Desi the same. So that's really important for me. And the other thing, probably, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. My family, we're at home. It's the first match or big match that my mum and dad haven't been to in years. We lost my uncle recently to COVID, and there was a bit of that, and probably thinking about my family, how much they would love to be there, and how maybe a bit of a lift it might give them. So there was a bit of that going on as well. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's experienced that over the last while, and so there was a a bit of love for my family going on there as well,
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, that's horrific. I mean, I haven't lost anyone with COVID, thankfully, and most people haven't, but it must be really hard to take and digest. And I don't know, is it your mum's side or your dad's side, but that's obviously on your mind in a big way.
Yeah, a little bit, and I was trying to think about it in a different way in the lead up to the game. But look, it's my dad's brother, Uncle Pat, but he was an absolutely amazing man, and just a shame maybe we couldn't honour him in the way that he might have deserved or liked. And he definitely had more years in the tank. But
right.
Look, that's part of what we're experiencing right now, and hopefully it's all turning, and we'll hear those stories less and less. But for now, so that was definitely in my mind at the full-time whistle.
And it's interesting, because I'm conscious you know your stuff when it comes to sports psychology. It's interesting you said there you maybe thought of using it in a slightly different way in advance of the final, because I would, again, being more on the outside and picking up snippets, almost hear a lot of sports people or psychologists talking about taking emotion out and not, using stuff like that necessarily. Stick to the process, I guess, is the great cliche. In what way did you allow yourself use it?
Sport is an emotional game, and I think if we were logical all the time, we wouldn't. I don't think Jonny would be as successful as he is if he was a logical being on the pitch all the time. So, you have to balance the two, the head and the heart. And how do I do it? I suppose you're just keeping them in your thoughts. You're not necessarily. I think when you go out onto the pitch, there is I have a job to do. Look, I didn't even get on the pitch,
Yeah.
so I didn't get a chance maybe to express myself the way I like to. But look, I guess I settled in and wrote a bit down about maybe what it means to represent, who I'm representing, when I go out there and stuff like that. So, maybe that's an answer to your question. Maybe how I might have used that.
No, it is for sure. It is for sure. Geez, I mean, look, when you're on that bench and you're looking at Howard and Mannion, it's getting harder and harder to get off that bench. My God.
Yeah, very true. And look, credit goes out to the lads and Collie and Philly Mack and Cormac Costello. Every one of them brought an edge to the game and raised it a little bit. And I can see Howard's name everywhere, but he wasn't the Lone Ranger either. And I think in the second half we kind of grew into it. That kind of 3-4 minute period after the second water break, Howard got a lovely boomer, Mannion a lovely free from winning from a kick out, and then I think Dean got a free a minute later from Kieran Kenny, and I think that was a 2-point. It was a 2-point game to a 5-point game, and I think that was probably the win of the game for us. Yeah,
it was amazing. I don't know, Johnny, your perspective on it, but you have a look back at the game, and unlike the 12 minutes in the semi-final post half-time last year, there was a kind of a subtlety about the way Dublin closed this game out. As Kevin says, I think Niall Scully won a free, Dean Rock knocks that over easily, Kilkenny scores a nice easy point by his standards, Mannion scores that great point, Howard scores a great point, and then there's another nothing free, and suddenly with 10 minutes to go, you're up by 5, and that's not a position you guys tend to give up that often. So it was almost a less dramatic flash way of winning it, but I don't know, could you get a sense on the field post half-time that you were starting to come into the ascendancy, or what was your feeling out there?
Yeah, well, I guess there's so many different skill sets that any one individual can bring to the game. So whether it's somebody kicking an outside the boot or Scully and doing all the work to do off the ball, there's so many different sides of people's games that if they do, and obviously teams will lock down a couple of your players, bigger players at different times, and just to share the load, I guess. Yeah, there probably was. We got to handle the first few minutes of the second half in particular. We were down a man, managed to take a little bit of control around the game, and that was important, I think, maybe. And then when we got 15 back, we were able to maybe go to a few more moves as such that we would like to try and get to, and as you said, that some of them paid off, and the finishers that came on as well, as Kev said too. Well, actually, so you mentioned that post half-time, the 2 throw-ins. Second half, you keep the ball for, I think, the guts of 2 minutes off the throw-in. That's no mistake, I suspect, with 14 men. And then, if Jim Gavin admitted last year the Merchant play was, relatively pre-planned. I presume something similar with the goal after 15 seconds. That space doesn't empty up right through the centre of the pitch, Johnny, without you lads coordinating something. No, definitely. There's obviously a lot of smarts. It was a powerful run. James does that all the time, to be fair to him. And just a bit like Owen's goal last year, thing just opened up a little bit. And then you had Dean in the right position. So again, just the smarts of the guys pulling out away. Haven't watched it back now, to be honest, only from my recall from the game, but it's as I said, we can go to different strands if we need to. We can run, we can kick, we can slow it down if we need, depending on the tempo of the game. So look, that's just, I guess, a bit of the experience that's there too. Who were you marking for the bulk of your time out there, Johnny? Was it O'Shea for most of it? Ryan O'Donoghue in the first half for a lot of it, and then ended up on Aidan O'Shea for a good few of the ball. It's just the way it works out. It's not probably the way in which you would like to have some of the matchups, but look, that's just the nature of those games sometimes. And would you have prepared during the week knowing you were marking O'Donoghue, or who did you have in mind when you were preparing? I probably keep it quite wide in terms of my own personal preparation. I probably have 4 or 5 on my list in terms of the preparation and the analysis that you do, the key points around them. So I would never probably just isolate or go to 1 or 2, right, for that matter. Probably 4 or 5 on my list. Okay. You spoke brilliantly last year about, the roller coaster of emotions post sending off in the drawn final, and I think Jack McCaffrey saying to you, "Don't worry, bud, we got you," and then a reprieve, and then the ecstasy, I suppose, of putting it all right. When you have that tussle with O'Shea and he goes to ground and you turn around and look at David Coldrick, are you fearful of a black card, or what's your sense of what's just happened? No, it didn't even enter my head. People were slagging me after, lads were slagging me after that it was, but in the game, I didn't feel that at all.
Right.
But yeah, when you look back, I haven't looked back at it, so maybe it was. I looked closer, but didn't feel like that in the game, anyway.
I would have been. I think he could have stayed up, but I think on balance, I might have flashed a black card in your direction. I don't know, Kevin. Do I have that wrong?
I don't know. I think. Yeah. It must. I didn't know Jonny was that strong. Aidan falling over when he got walloped by him. But no, I'm only buzzing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think black cards have actually probably relatively disappeared out of the game this year. I don't think people are, because of the 10 minutes. I haven't seen much of them. It feels like they're not being given as much, which I think is probably a good thing. I think if someone is cynically slowing down the game, or getting someone's way, and obviously doing it, and look, obviously it was happening a lot. Maybe 10 years ago it was happening a lot, which is why the rule was brought in. But it's probably good to see that there's less and less black cards. It seems anyway to me in this championship,
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Kevin,
but they're kind of non-existent at club level.
Are they right?
From my feeling that you just don't see them as much. I think referees are just rather giving a yellow card, and unless it's blatant, or unless they're deliberately trying to finish off a game or whatever it is,
Well, maybe that's the way it should be, really. And to be fair, Kevin McStay on the TV said it was probably 50-50 and just two lads going at it and not a black card. I'm being harsh on you here, Jonny, so ignore me. How did you find it out there? Because Mayo brings something that, they suck you into a game at times. And like the stat which jumped out at me, Jonny, I don't know, did you get this at half time? But in the first half, which was amazing, 22 first half kickouts, Mayo won all of their own 12. And then of Dublin's 10 in the first half, Mayo won 5. And it's funny, I know you probably don't pay any attention to pre-match talk in the media, but the kickouts was an area where a lot of the pundits were saying, geez, Dublin could really dominate, and they've got Fenton and lots of great lads, and Mayo could find that sticky. And actually, Mayo really did a bit of a number on you guys kick-out-wise in the first half. So that was one area where they caused trouble. What else did you feel out there was proven tricky, or what were you kind of struggling to cope with, in so much as you can cope with the game that you ultimately won? But give us a sense out there, if you can, of what areas you felt, geez, that's a fire we need to put out, that's something else that's causing us stress out here.
It was probably a little bit more of our own execution, to be honest. And look, that's probably to Mayo's credit in terms of the intensity and the way in which they present themselves. You mentioned kickouts. It's a massive part of the game. I didn't know that stat, but I'm probably not surprised either. So I guess you feel that level of intensity. They're pretty close to you at all times. And then if they're winning and they're coming at you in waves, we obviously know they're running threat, particularly from their full-back line right out. So they caught us with a few there. But I think maybe some of our execution, be it around the kickouts or be it coming out of defence, we probably just couldn't maybe get a bit of a flow to our game. But as I said, it's probably great credit to Mayo and the intensity that they bring too.
What was your perspective on it, Kevin, watching on?
You know what? Like, it's funny. Someone said yesterday that we played brutally, and I was kind of going, Jesus. I thought we played exceptionally. Like, and considering the challenge that Mayo bring, one of the things that I did find interesting, they thought they did it really well, is they actually forced us back. And under new rules, we can't go back to the keeper. But I'd say of those we won, I'd say maybe 4 of them went back to Stephen in the first half, and then they set up something that I haven't seen them do a huge amount, where they essentially put 10 bodies in between the 45 and the 65, and we just couldn't cross the halfway line too easily, without having to go back across and really slow the game down. So something like that, I thought that was one of the real interesting parts of the game, particularly in the first half. And I think when they had to come at us a little bit after Robbie came back on in the second half, we were able to find little gaps in behind and attack the wings a little bit more. So it was something that impressed me, and I think it definitely slowed us down a lot. And the pace at which they tackled their team was something that we probably haven't experienced yet this year. And luckily the lads were a match for it in many ways,
Yeah, they're always great games to watch. That was an interesting point you said, Kev, about maybe the 5 in a row being a bit of a weight, which is not surprising given everything it represents. And Jack McCaffrey was talking here relatively recently to Bernard Brogan in a podcast, and he remembers after the drawn game just thinking, oh man, I'm empty, and almost needing to step away. Can you relate to that, Kevin? Did you get a sense others in the group, especially last year, were feeling the weight of it, you know? I mean, nobody else has stepped away, but I can't think Jack McCaffrey was the only person, as demanding as his job might be, thinking, oh, the demands of this now are starting to really become tricky.
Like, I suppose it's two questions. Was the demands of the game too much last year, or was it the idea that the whole country was, half the country, or all Dublin were looking for us to win it, and maybe the rest of us, the country, were looking for us to lose it? I guess there was maybe a bit of tension in how we played, and I just thinking into that game, like I think we'd 5 misses in our last 6 shots or something like that. So maybe I think that is kind of a product of us just worrying about, like, we constantly knew it was at the door, but the doorbell was just kept ringing all year, and while we dealt with it fairly well, I just thought it was a little bit, it was just a little bit of a bigger pressure than usual, and I just didn't feel it as much this year. Now, I remember the drawing game last year. I was supposed to be in Croatia on the Wednesday, and I had a lovely holiday planned. And so I was getting pressure from elsewhere about why I couldn't go over on my holidays. But anyway, we eventually we got the job done 2 weeks later, and that's the nature of the game, you know.
Yeah. How are you finding things, Johnny? Are you as hungry as ever, as motivated as ever? Is the tank feel as full as ever?
Yeah. Obviously, there's not a big wait for next year's season, or in the campaign. So we'll take stock. We'll obviously enjoy the Christmas and all that, and we'll take stock and see where we go. But yeah, there's still personally massive capacity, I would feel, in me, and lots of growth to be made. So look forward to getting on that journey, hopefully, and we'll talk to Desi and see what happens there. What
was the biggest difference, Johnny, between Desi and Jim?
This has been asked a good few times, and obviously people are very curious to know what's the, I don't know, like the different way of doing things, I guess, and nor should they be the same, but Desi's so passionate and caring, and he brings a lot of that. Not that Jim didn't, but he brings a lot of that, I guess, and the lads, he would have worked with lots of them lads growing up, and I think Kieran was saying they had him at development squad under 13 or under 14s right up, so right. He has obviously a particular connection and bond with a few more of the group than Jim would have had when he came in first.
Yeah, Kevin, what strikes you about Desi's approach?
Very, very, very driven character, and very, like Johnny said, passionate just about Dublin football. And I was unaware that he had put so much effort in with the young guys, and I think it's only when you see the love lads have for him, and Mick and the lads, like, but he definitely a different approach than Jim. You know, Jim probably had that structured army kind of background, and I suppose it just shows that two completely different characters with two different approaches can get the job done. There's no one way to manage, you know.
Mm. And assuming Desi wants you back involved, Kevin, when will you make up your mind about going back in again?
New Year, I think that's for me. I've probably New Year. And interesting to see the season. I kind of I know there's been a bit of him and han about what way the season is going. I don't know if that's been confirmed, but that will be a discussion with Desi, and have a little thinking. Chat to the people in the inner circle, and we'll look at it in the new year.
Yeah, well, it's looking like you'd be wrapped up by July if you did go again. That seems to be the way it's going to go, and straight into National League in February. I mean, allowing the world not going crazy as well. Kevin, can I ask you this? As some, you've been around a long time. You've seen the good and the bad of Dublin. The Dublin dominance debate is alive and well, and I don't want to get too into it, not least on the back of the weekend you've just had, but. There's obviously, a bunch of players in your team, understandably, who are saying, well, like, all the money in the world doesn't make it easier for me to get up at 7 a.m. and do a gym session or prehab or practice my skill set. And yet, the advantages of population in particular, I think, going forward, and then obviously finances in terms of bringing on younger players, do give Dublin a huge advantage. Are you... See, I was going to use the word worried, so as a Dub, you're not going to be worried. But do you have a sense, like, are we staring down, a future now where Dublin have harnessed all the advantages they have brilliantly, like, and this thing could be 31 counties versus Dublin, and Dublin always winning, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 a decade? Can you see how it might go that way? Do you have a concern it might go that way? Do you think that's okay for GAA?
It's a very doom and gloom approach, I think.
Welcome to the media.
Yeah, like, and you know what? I guess, like, what I always think about this one is who, like, this will sound wrong. Like, whose problem? Like, whose job is it to solve this? You know, because it's not mine and Johnny's. Like, you know,
no, it's not.
I feel like I wonder, because I always hear that, you know, people like players and, you know, managers, they're like all getting asked about it, and I kind of think, well, and I'd love to know what you think. Whose job is it to solve it? You know, because I go on, yeah.
I was going to say, I suppose you could argue GAA centrally, but I was also going to say I haven't heard a great solution yet. You know, divvy up the money better for sure. Dublin will always probably have financial advantages. I mean, I think if we're into the realm of splitting Dublin in two and throwing out 100 and however many years of tradition, it really just can't come to that. And amalgamating other counties is just as kind of an awful a thought for those counties. So genuinely, Kevin, I haven't heard a solution. I've heard lots of complaining about it, and I've heard lots of diagnosing the problem, and there is for want of a different word or whatever, there is a problem or an issue there. But I don't see an easy solution, to be honest. That's why it's so tricky, you know?
Yeah, and and I don't think I'm the person to come up with them either. But you know, I think it's just because the other thing is to be careful of is that there does seem to be a bit of an exaggeration and of to what's happening. Like there's a bit of embellishment there as well. So I think it needs to be a bit more kind of, you know, fact based and stuff, because it would get to a stage where, and you can see people maybe, like, it's funny, the people that, like, there's a lot of players that have played against our team, and in fairness, like, a lot of people that we would have gone to war with, and they're going, you know, lads, you don't get it. These are a good team, and these are doing things the right way, and they have their house in order. But, you know, and that's nice to hear, because it'd be easy to say, they only beat us because of X, Y, and Z. But, and I think, you're dead right. The solution hasn't been brought forward, and I'm not, willing to give my, you know, and I don't probably have one either.
No, I appreciate that.
But I guess it's like, who is the person? Because it's definitely not me, you know.
Yeah. And look, it's probably not the right thing to bring up, to be fair, on the Monday afterwards. Johnny, we'll finish on a better note. Can you sum up then this strange championship from a Dublin perspective, and how it's been for you and what it's meant to you? Another All-Ireland, it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, no, sure. I think something that jumps to mind for me is just the respect and the amount of respect that I have for Kev and all the teammates, just to see the things that went on in the background and people going through difficult journeys and challenges and whatnot. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me, definitely, but just a massive respect for me. And obviously we couldn't share there with our families and friends and supporters, but that's probably the second thing for me, is just hopefully that in our own little way, there was smiles around Dublin households while people were enjoying each other's companies, given the last couple of months that have gone on.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was a really enjoyable game. Once again, you guys have just played some ridiculous football. You know, it's a joy to watch when you're all in full flow. It's awesome. So huge congratulations, like historical stuff. Kevin McManamon, 8 All-Irelands, you know, outrageous. Well done. And Jonny Cooper, I don't know how many you're going to have when you retire, but 7 is not going so far, to say the least. So Johnny, Kevin, thanks a million, lads. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.